Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for the first online edition of the Viantis Enterprise Days. I'm Anthony from the marketing team at Viantis in France, and I'm delighted to see you here. The session will start in a few seconds, but I first wanted to share with you some practical information. As you may have noticed, we'll all be in mute mode during the presentation, so you can't talk to us directly. However, I invite you to use the chat box to leave your comments and your questions, as there will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Finally, as some of you may have understood, this session has been pre-recorded to avoid any technical problems or last-minute cancellation. But we will be in live at the end to answer your questions with the speakers. Thanks again for your participation, and see you right after.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you everybody for joining me today to discuss getting started with Jira Align for Viantis Enterprise Days. So what I'd like to do first is talk a little bit about this context that we're all in, the context of digital disruption, what's driving people to Agile practices and the tools that support them. And we'll then examine how companies are adapting given this context. And then lastly, we'll look at how to get started with Jira Align. So our context of digital disruption is that, as Mick Kirsten put it in his great book, From Project to Product, those who master large-scale software delivery will define the economic landscape of the 21st century. We're basically in the software age in which every industry is dependent on technology, and every organization is at least in part a software company. Looking at the broader perspective in our history of 5 technological revolutions, these come from Carlota Perez's book, The Technological Revolutions and Financial Capital. And she discusses these various times and phases and concludes that technology revolutions radically alter society, first via a mass movement in the financial capital, and then later that results in new production capital of goods and services. There's massive societal change, disruption, and a new economic order eventually sets in. She talks about 3 periods: the installation period. That's when there's an explosion of new technology and financial capital. Then there's a turning point when existing businesses either master the new technology or decline and become relics of the past. Then you've got the deployment period. That's when production capital of the new technological giants really starts to take over. So where are we today? Well, let's take a look at just some of the news headlines and things like that. I mean, look at Tesla's market cap, for example, now exceeds that of Ford with a 13-to-1 value ratio. Look at the fact that the Apple Watch debuted just 5 years ago, and now Apple sells more watches than the whole Swiss industry. So it looks like we are at or past the turning point. As Mick says, again, the problem is not with our organizations realizing they need to transform. The problem is that we're using frameworks and models from past revolutions to manage our businesses in the current revolution. So that's the context that we are in. And how are we adopting and adapting to this circumstance? Well, we've learned 5 lessons in our experience to pass on to you. The first is to pick a framework and stick with it for a while. Resist the urge to modify your framework from the start. You've selected a framework because it's a proven method backed by numerous case studies. Resist the urge to think your organization is unique. Little humor for you here from a movie you might recall from a past age, perhaps. We're not special. Let's leverage what others have learned and then move forward with that for our own success. So that's why we recommend at least trying out your framework for a period of around, I'd say at least 6 months to a year before you make modifications. Now, when it comes to frameworks, Scrum is the most popular at the team level, and it works great for a few teams of 5 to 9 members. But now, how would you get Agile benefits when you've got 100 teams that are even bigger than the 5 to 9 traditional Scrum team? And how do you coordinate all those teams? How do you monitor the stream of value delivery? That's when Agile scaling frameworks come in. Now, there's many to choose from, and the Scaled Agile framework is the most popular, with 35% of respondents just this past spring stating that that's this scaling framework that they use. And this was from the State of Agile report that comes out each spring. So a little bit more about the Scaled Agile framework. It's for lean enterprises. It's a knowledge base, and it's proven. It's backed by case studies. It's got the principles, practices, and competencies you need to transform into a lean, agile organization. And that includes a DevOps capability as well. So the full SAFe picture looks something like this. You can find it online. And what we're going to talk a little bit more about is kind of zero in on the essential aspects of SAFe, which are the team level and then team of teams. So how would you set up the SAFe structure in Jira software? Well, you've got your teams delivering stories within sprints. Those roll up to teams of teams, which we call programs, and they deliver epics. At each work item level, you've got a associated time and outcome level as well. So you deliver stories in sprints, epics in typically business quarters, and then those are going to roll up to that portfolio level where the work item is an initiative. For outcomes of these levels, you could define those as you wish. Things like annual OKRs would be a good outcome of an initiative, for example. So that's an idea of how we would set up the SAFe structure in Jira. Lesson number 2, choose the right tool set for your Agile mindset. Now remember, in the Agile Manifesto, we have individuals and interactions are valued more than processes and tools, but that doesn't mean your tool set should be inadequate. In fact, assembling the right tools will enable you to be agile. It will enable a continuous delivery pipeline, for example, to help you reduce your cycle time while increasing your speed to market and your cash flow. So the tool in question is Jira Align. It is purpose-built for Agile and Agile at scale. It's to solve these challenges that we're talking about. It creates visibility, consistency, predictability, and flow between all levels in your organization so that they could connect from the top down, bottom up, and meet in the middle. Connecting your enterprise strategy down to your tactical team level execution. So at the foundation, you still have your Jira software and other Atlassian tools like Confluence or Trello. And it's built to support any scaling framework. All the practices from Essential SAFe are implemented quite easily, as is full SAFe. And disruption is minimal for your Agile teams because they can stay in software, where most teams are these days. About 60% of them leverage Jira software for Agile team delivery. So the important thing when you pick your framework is that it matches your tools, step by step. So take the SAFe implementation roadmap, for example. You'll see that if you implement SAFe, and you'll follow that winding path to success. It kind of looks like the roadmap to implement Jira Align, actually, when you get one of your programs launched, and we'll talk about that in a bit. You follow that same path. The important thing is that your tools are built to support your methods and your framework, because if not, you're going to get bit. Don't let that happen to you. Lesson number 3 is to organize around value to reduce dependencies. We're going to return to that concept of the team of teams here. It's important that when you set them up, they could deliver those epics, Jira epics that is, also known as features, with minimal dependence upon other groups. You could see these dependencies very well in Jira Align with various visualizations, like the matrix that we see on the left or the wheel we see on the right. In particular, the wheel is a popular view where you see the interdependencies among teams on a ART, which is a program or team of teams, or interdependencies, say, from program to program. So you've got access to that information that can help you align your teams to deliver with minimal dependencies. Once you see the level of dependencies, you know how to then adjust the teams. And we've seen success with getting started with programs in SAFe and Jira Align, and then say about a few months later, being able to go, hey, wait a minute, we need to restructure these teams a bit so that way they could deliver better and faster and improve throughput. So if that wheel on the right looks like a spider web, that's the time when you might want to revisit the structure of your programs. Here's another thing it reminded me of when I first saw the interdependencies portrayed as the wheel. Something from childhood here. So you want to kind of avoid your wheel. Lesson number 4. Speaking of visualizing, let's now visualize our program velocity for planning and predictability. That's really important. Just as an Agile team executing in Jira software knows their velocity so they could plan sprints, so too the program level needs to know its program level velocity so it could plan a program increment, which is a group of sprints. So there's various views within Jira Align that you could see the group velocity, such as this chart we've got here, or the program increments burn up is another helpful view with the points on the left and sprints on the horizontal. Or you've got the velocity trend as well, where team by team you could see if they are meeting their PI velocity targets, represented by the dot there. And then the bar is their actual velocity during the PI. Next up, our last lesson is to visualize work to reduce waste. You may recall from the manifesto that Principle 10 speaks of the importance of simplicity. And that helps with a lean approach as well, because then you could actually maximize the amount of work not done. Sounds counterintuitive, but when you visualize the work, you could look for duplicates, in essence. That would be redundant work that really shouldn't be done. And you could have a lot of cost savings as a result of this. We've seen savings up to $750,000 in a single PI with a single ART, just in the avoidance of duplicate work. And you could really only see this level or achieve this level of savings when you've got the work all connected up in a tool and visible across the entire organization. So the work tree would be a great view for that in Jira Align, where you could drill down from the highest level to the lowest level across the organization to see all the various types of work as they interconnect. Also, the program board is key for that. You've got your sprints in the PI and in the columns, and you've got your teams in swim lanes. You've got all the various features or Jira epics that are targeted for delivery in the various sprints. It shows the various dependencies, which show as the bow ties there. Anything that's red, you could drill into to find out why. And it's just a great tool both for planning and execution of the program increment, which is that group of sprints each business quarter, typically around 6 sprints. So then how do you get started with Jira Align? Well, we talked a little bit earlier about the implementation roadmap, and that's really the place to start. And we recommend starting with 1 or 2 showcase programs, 1 or 2 showcase teams of teams. If you're using SAFe, that would be an Agile release train. Start with 1 or 2, build some success, and then leverage that success, build upon it to then scale across your organization. Another approach would be, hey, the platform's burning, we gotta move, we gotta get 4, 5, 6 programs launched right away. That would be an exception, but it's doable, and we've done that. And our program launch is actually flexible and modular to suit your needs. You could have as many programs as you want, and we could even scale you up to the portfolio level sooner rather than later. But the bottom line is start with a program launch. We recommend 1 or 2, and again, to build on that success helps anchor the new approach in your culture, which experience shows is a real successful way to achieve the business outcomes that you're looking for in using these Agile practices combined with the tools that support them. So we're ready now to take some questions from you all.